This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Spin Shuffle Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. I'm going to apologize right up front because, dear listeners, I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize if I sound a little nasally. But there was no way I was not going to hop on the mic and do this show, so you're welcome. But we're doing something a little different today. We're going to go back a few years. We're going to go back getting close to 50 years. And we're talking about the second album from Andy Gibb, Shadow Dancing. Here to join me to go down this road, Alex Whissell's back on the show. Alex, how you doing, man?
I'm great. I am not nasally.
Yeah. You know what? We'll just swap roles and you host the show because clearly I'm in no shape to host the show, but I'm going to do it anyways. Why? Because I care, damn it. I care.
For the people.
That's right. For all you dear listeners, I suffer for your earlobes. You're welcome. So you are the one who brought Shadow Dancing to the table. So please tell our listeners how you stumbled upon this.
Okay, so in my younger days, I used to do a lot of house music. I would sample a lot of old disco records and stuff like that. And ultimately, I'm just a huge fan of the Bee Gees. And one day I was at a record shop and I stumbled upon Shadow Dancing. I bought it right away and fell in love with the entire album on the first listen. And what I was explaining to Jason was, based off his criteria, I'm like, what could I possibly throw into this show a little bit as a revenge for that one fantastic episode that we did where I had to listen essentially to an acid trip, and I fell on Andy Gibb and I said, this is perfect. Disco hasn't been done to my knowledge, so let's do it,
For the record, dear listeners, that acid trip was The Boy with the X-Ray Eyes by Babylon Zoo. So, yeah, I'm still recovering from that episode. Maybe that's why I'm nasally. But, by the way, dear listeners, just so you guys are aware, when it comes to the criteria, Alex mentioned the criteria for the show here. So, over on There Can Only Be One, we have a criteria where the artist needs to have a minimum of 5 albums. Otherwise, it's going to be a short damn show. But for Spin Shuffle Skip, I like to keep the artist with a discography under 5 albums or a soundtrack or a compilation album. So that way we can kind of touch upon some of those albums that we don't get to normally touch over on There Can Only Be One. And Andy Gibb fits right the bill because he's only got 3 albums before his untimely passing in the 80s. So here we are talking Shadow Dancing, released June 1978, peaked at number 7 in the US and number 1 in Canada. It is platinum in the US and Canada and silver in the UK. There were 4 singles off of this one. Shadow Dancing hit number 1 in the US and Canada. So Alex, since you're the one who brought this disc to us, what is your spin pick from Andy Gibb's Shadow Dancing album?
My spin pick is the title track, Shadow Dancing. It's really easy to explain. As soon as you put it on, it has all the ingredients for a hit, from the production to the lyrics to how everything's sounding blended together. It's amazing.
It's my pick as well. I can't lie. This is kind of exactly what I was expecting. And yes, I fully understand that Andy was not a part of the Bee Gees. He is his own artist. But of course, you're going to have that Bee Gees sound because you had some of the Bee Gees working behind the scenes on this track. This is exactly what I thought I was getting into. There are other tracks on the album where it kind of steers away from that Bee Gees-esque kind of sound, but this is exactly what I personally was hoping for, because I don't mind the Bee Gees. I really don't. I got nothing against disco. I freaking loved it when the Foo Fighters covered the Bee Gees. But here you have Andy Gibb really proving that he was a fantastic artist. And this song, you could tell it was going to be a radio hit. You could tell it was going to go somewhere. This is actually a really, really good song if you are into that Bee Gees sound. Although, with that being said, let me paint you a picture here. There were 4 singles off of this album, as mentioned before. Shadow Dancing charted the highest in Canada, hitting number 1. It also hit number 1 in the US. However, when it came to the UK, it was a different story. It hit number 42 in the UK, and Everlasting Love actually charted higher in the UK at number 10. So there are other singles out there that did pretty well, but when it came to the US and Canada, Shadow Dancing was literally number 1.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Pantheon Podcast CEO Christian Swain here. Today, let's talk about self-care and those non-negotiables that keep us grounded. What are yours? Whether it's a committed workout routine or dedicated therapy day, these rituals are vital, especially when life gets hectic. Therapy has been a game changer for me, offering powerful coping tools for anyone wanting to boost their mental health, not just those with trauma. It helps set boundaries, challenge negative thoughts, and promotes personal growth. I've been using BetterHelp for months now, and it's made a real difference. If you're considering therapy, check out BetterHelp. It's entirely online, convenient, and flexible. Just fill out a quick questionnaire, and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Don't skip your therapy day. Visit betterhelp.com/pantheon for 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/pantheon. Self-care isn't a luxury. It's a necessity.
Hey folks, this is Martin Popoff.
And John Gaffney from Kicked in the Teeth, an AC/DC podcast, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Every month, we take a deep dive into an AC/DC album, giving you some history and trivia, along with a track-by-track discussion.
We also have episodes where we do rankings, lists, and tackle all kinds of fun AC/DC-related topics.
So tune in every month to get your fill of AC/DC and more.
At Kicked in the Teeth, an AC/DC podcast.
So now that we've got both of our spins out of the way, we're just knocking them off here. I'll be curious to hear the rest, because it's not a surprise that the only song that hit number 1 in the US and Canada was going to be arguably the best song on the record. But now when we get to the shuffle picks, it's a bit more of a wider criteria here. So for me, my shuffle pick, I had to go over to the second side of the album and went with Melody. This is a bit more of a subdued song. There's some really good bits in here, and it caters to my likes because the pre-chorus in this song actually has a bit of dramatic power to it just with the simple chord progression. Dear musicians, never take the chord progression for granted. This song, because without that chord progression, it's like, okay, it's a nice song. The minute you add those little chord progressions into the pre-chorus, it's like, oh, there's something really, really tasty here. And I find it funny because this was my second favorite song on the album. Yet it has the fewest plays on Spotify of the entire album. So Melody might actually be a bit of a hidden gem. But Alex, your thoughts and your pick for your shuffle.
So my little thoughts there on your pick, because I do love your pick. I think I can kind of answer why Melody has such low streams on Spotify. I don't remember if I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure the Bee Gees ended up covering that song for themselves, and it charted, or it did a lot better. And then also to talk about how, like, with the chord progression and just the overall production of the song, like, if you read into the notes, it is the Bee Gees that fully produced this album. And the Bee Gees, specifically Barry Gibb, the lead singer, for the longest time, has been known basically to be up there with like Lennon and McCartney when it comes to making songs. So it's crazy how one person could come up with such uh, big amounts of music. That being said, my pick was An Everlasting Love for my shuffle, just because I don't know, just listening to it, I went, it was close to being my spin, but like I said earlier, Shadow Dancing had all the ingredients.
I mean, it's not a bad song by any stretch of the imagination, and did well enough on the charts. I find it funny because as I'm looking at the track listing here and the writers, so on side one you've got the first 5 tracks: Shadow Dancing, Why, Fool for a Night, and Everlasting Love, and Our Love Don't Throw It All Away. Andy Gibb has writing credits on 3 of them: Shadow Dancing, Why, and Fool for a Night. Barry Gibb wrote An Everlasting Love completely by himself. Same thing with Our Love Don't Throw It All Away was Barry Gibb with Blue Weaver. And then the side 2 is completely written by Andy Gibb. So you're definitely going to hear those Bee Gees sensibilities in that first side. I think that the thing with melody for me was it sounded a little different from everything on side 1. So I think that's why it kind of stood out a little bit more. But I completely understand why An Everlasting Love ended up as a shuffle pick. I will admit it actually was in the running for my skip, however.
Ooh.
I know. For me personally, I found it a little yacht rock. I'm not going to lie, but it's not my skip pick, though. For that, I ended up going with Fool for a Night. So this is the one Andy Gibb only written tune on the first side. Another song that definitely fits in the yacht rock category. But as I'm listening to this, and I'm like, okay, so you've got light rock, you've got some, deeper lyrics, but then the guitar says reggae, but the rest of the band says light rock. And I felt like tonally the song was trying to walk 2 roads at the same time, which is, if you only have 2 legs, it's a little hard to do. It's not a bad song. I just felt like, and I hesitate to put it this way, but I'm going to put it this way only because I'm talking about a song. It feels like it suffers from multiple genre disorder.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with you. Which is why I picked it as my skip.
Okay. This might be the shortest episode actually in a spin shuffle skip history here, because your spin is my spin, your skip is my skip, and we went back and forth on the shuffle. Dear listeners, that might be a record. That is a record at this point. In the short history of spin shuffle skip, that is the record for the most exact pairings on one episode.
What do I win?
Absolutely nothing.
Woo!
And you know what, though? I'll double your winnings because it's a record. Your winnings are still nothing. You're not getting paid anything, but that's okay. But the thing is, it was bound to happen on an album with only 10 songs.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't know. What about Fool for a Night that made you pick it as your skip?
I think the one thing that really distracted me overall from the song was the drums. I was listening to it and I went like, I'm listening to the lyrics, I'm listening to the music, and I just couldn't connect to the song rhythmically. If that's I'm saying that right. Compared to everything else on the album, I feel like personally the entire album's a shuffle except for that one song.
Which is funny because this was actually a first listen for me. So I'm almost kind of relieved that we're on the same boat, because I'm like, okay, maybe I'm hearing it like everyone else is hearing it. And the fact that you're like, the drums, and that was the thing. You hear that very reggae-esque type guitar, and maybe it's just where I sit in the pocket on reggae is that I expect to hear that little reggae skip beat on the drums at the same time. And I think if the song had gone full reggae, I think the song would have been fantastic. Like the same chord progressions, the same song structure, just go full reggae. I think the song would have been definitely a departure from the very Bee Gees disco-esque sound you're getting on the rest of it, and the more radio-friendly, sweeping 70s ballads that you have on here. Throw a little reggae in there. Have a little fun with it. Go all the way. All right, Alex, it's time. Remind our listeners what your spin, shuffle, and skip picks were from Andy Gibb's second album, Shadow Dancing.
My spin was the title track, Shadow Dancing. My shuffle was An Everlasting Love. And my skip was Fool for a Night.
And for me, my spin was Shadow Dancing. It's going to sound very familiar. My shuffle is Melody, and my skip is Fool for a Night as well. All right, Alex, please remind our listeners out there where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
You could find me deep into the music world on YouTube at AC Official Music page. Or you could also find me on Instagram at Photographs by AC.
All right, dude. Thank you so much. And to you, our listeners, thank you for suffering with me through my cold in order to be able to provide you an episode. But you guys do know the drill. If there's an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, or an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out all of our other shows in our Coming Soon page. Until next time, he's Alex. I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is Spin, Shuffle, Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.